Hi, just was kind of thumbing through my TikTok and I happened to come across this video with Vicki Dillard. She's an on air personality and a spiritual leader. And so, as I was thumbing through, I was listening to her. She was giving RFK the business concerning Black Americans and reparations. Watch this.
The only people who can really change that culture is the guy who's in charge.
Well, with that being said, Vicki Dillard and Anubis, welcome to the Free Think Zone. We've been having a great conversation. Vicki, I want to start with you, and that we've teed it all up, and you don't have to follow any particular question, but just what's on your heart, what's on your mind, and what would you like to ask and bring into this discussion with presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you so much for coming. I would like to talk about the Holocaust briefly, the Black Holocaust, the most devastating human tragedy that has ever existed, that's lasted longer than any other for going into 500 years, that has neither ceased nor desist, and we have not received reparations. And just up from chattel slavery, convict leasing, and all of these other injustices, and under the heel of Jim Crow, our people went to Germany to fight Hitler to deliver some of the Jews from his hand, only for them to turn around and call some of us anti-Semitic. There is a multi-volume book that talks about the secret relationship between blacks and Jews, because we know that some of the most damning and devastating effects that we've experienced in slavery had to do with members of the Jewish community. This is important to understand. Why am I bringing this up? Because our perspective of the world is unmatched in every way. So when we talk about something being a genocide or something being a problem, I think our opinion should matter, and it should be listened to very closely. In terms of reparation, the emphasis should be lineage-based. I am not only a media personality in alternative media, independent media, but I am also a spiritual teacher. I've had supernatural encounters since I was a child. And so the thing that I'm having here, even with you here, sir, is prophetic and was prophesied years ago. And I must tell you, what I'm saying to you is not even an opinion. It is something that I want you, with respect and great humility, to remember. There is an unseen government, and they're actually using you as well as your family. And whether, no matter who's paying you, which is suspect right now, and no matter how your positions seem to be divergent and doesn't quite make much sense when we see how strongly you are on so many other issues of justice. But when it comes down to the issues of reparations, and when it comes down to this notion of ceasefire, which is absolutely nothing at all, and your extraordinary and misguided defense of Israel, it is a serious problem. I want you to understand that whatever you decide to do, whoever it is that's backing you, and whatever your thought process, and no matter what you think about it, you're supposed to represent the people. And the majority of the people are telling you, no matter what you think about Israel, we said no. And we want to hear you say what we say in the majority. So whatever you individually think should not take precedent over the majority of us. And especially when you see folk like us talk. That should hold greater weight because of our unique position. Let me say this. Indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, that his justice cannot sleep forever, that considering numbers, nature, and natural means only a revolution of the wheel of fortune, listen, and exchange of situation is among possible events, that it may become probable for supernatural interference. This was from Thomas Jefferson. He understood that the hell that they brought upon the foundational Black American, who's responsible for the creation of America, based on our black blood that was shed on our nightmare, this American dream to which many flee from around the world. He said, and he knew that there was going to be a moment of justice that America would have to pay. So there was nothing.
But real quick, I'm getting a signal from the back also. Vicki, you have a question?
I don't.
No question, a comment.
Yes, I want to finish my comment. How many, do I have a few seconds left?
Sure.
Thank you, no question. And the reason there's no question is because I've watched you, and particularly some of your exchanges, or your promised exchange you were supposed to have with Max Blumenthal, who was the foremost authority on this notion of Israel. And I've noticed how you've come down when it comes down to reparations. So it's not my job to try to ask a question about this. I want you to remember what I say and consider the things that I'm saying. I'm almost finished. Reparations is lineage, should be lineage based. And so long as we can prove that our ancestors were enslaved, that should be the emphasis, lineage based reparations. Lineage based reparations is a debt America owes. It is not you being altruistic or philanthropic. It is owed, and America must pay her debt. And I should say this, when I talked about the interconnection between the spiritual aspect of Thomas Jefferson, he understood that no matter what you try to put forward, whether it's vaccines, whether it's the economy, whether it's the drama between the political parties, it is interconnected to the fact that you've not dealt with the original sin. So you're going to have hell in every area in America and around the world if we don't get justice. You understand? My last point. Judith Varney Shore. Do you know who she is? Former Israeli consul. And the meeting was recorded. I did multiple broadcasts on this. You can Google it. It'll pop up. She said a few years ago, as an Israeli government official, that the problem with Israel is black American youth. No congressional hearing was had. We find out that the issue with the police department, many police officers in the United States are trained by the Mossad and Israeli soldiers. They come here and they fly over there. And they have actually traced credibly some of the training to some of the actual injuries and murders of our people here in these United States of America. And $4 billion every year since Israel's existence would be a hell of a down payment for our reparations. So I would say that to you, brother, and I would say to consider that America has no choice. And perhaps you were called for such a time as this because you have a level of energy that has to do with justice and this unusual grouping of the danger that you pose to both sides could go further when you do right by us. So this resistance, last point that you have with reparations, this resistance that you have, if that isn't dealt with, you're going to run into problems in more ways than one.
Thank you, Vicki. And
so yeah, let me address a couple of things that you said. One,
Hi, and welcome to my channel. Thank you for stopping by to see little old me. Before we get started, do me a favor. Click like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification button. I would really appreciate it. So let's get right into it. As I stated before, that video was of Vicki Dillard. She's an on-air personality and a spiritual teacher. She has a website. It's called VickiPlanet.com. And she's also on the African Diaspora news channel, which I love so much, with Phil Scott, Demetria K, Wingale Zell Lim. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And many others. I watch it faithfully. I'll also subscribe to the app. They bring world news concerning Black Americans or Africans all over the world. And also, too, you know, I've been telling you for a few months now that I'm on my way to South Africa. Yay! I'll be going in April, and I'm super, super excited about it. And I will get a chance to meet with Phil Scott. And so I'm super excited, and I'm going with the tour group, which is Mark and Latasha Blanton, The Real South Africa. Check them out. They have a great line of different tours that you can take, and they're pretty reasonable, and they are the creme de la creme, shall I say. So I'm pretty excited. So anywho, I really love this sister, Vicki Dillard. YouAreTheBomb.com. Let me tell you. Now, this sister knows our history. She knows it like no one else knows it. And I really appreciate her advocating and speaking up for us, for those of us that want reparations. I, for one, I advocate it, and I'm going to continue to advocate it because we deserve it. Our ancestors built this country off of their backs, and they made promises that they did not keep. You know, like the mule and 40 acres that was never given. You know, and so I really am excited that she spoke in such a way. She said, "Hey, I don't have to ask no questions because I already know your stance on it. I just need to make some comments, and I need you to hear me clear." Because the truth be told is that America is going to fall if they don't make their wrong right. They did a lot of wrong, a lot of wrong. And those of you who I know the trolls is going to come on here and say what they're going to say, it doesn't even matter because it just doesn't matter. You're going to come on here and say the things, say whatever you're going to say. And guess what? We're still going to advocate for reparations. No matter whether you think we deserve it or don't, we're still going to advocate for it. Yes, we are, because we do deserve it. Our ancestors did not get what they rightfully should have been getting. So did you guys see how they tried to throw her off? Oh, that was so funny, honey. She put them right back in their place. Like, oh, hold on, no, I'm not asking no questions. I'm commenting. Do I still have the floor? I like how she just like went back to what she was saying with, you know, not allowing them to interrupt her. I don't blame her. She did that so smooth and so respectful. So respectful. I just love it. Well, anywho, I have another video that I want to play for you guys, and this video is also is the rebuttal, or shall I say the answer to the comment. Anyway, watch this.
So this resistance, last point that you have with reparations, this resistance that you have, if that isn't dealt with, you're going to run into problems in more ways than one.
Thank you, Vicki. And
so, yeah, let me address a couple of things that you said. One is, I don't think my job is to do what people want me to do. I've never believed that. If that's the kind of leader that people want, then they should not vote for me. I'm going to do what I think is right. And everything I do, everything I've done throughout my career has shown that. Nobody liked when I was talking about vaccines. The majority of people just did not want that. But I talk about it anyway. I'm going to do what I think is right. And I would point out to you that during the civil rights movement, that the Jews in this country, and particularly the leadership of the Jews, were at the forefront of that movement and were embraced by Martin Luther King, were embraced by the other leaders of the movement. 3 Jewish boys, Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney, were killed in Mississippi. They died so that Black Americans could, first the civil rights movement, many other Jews took great risks and suffered because of their sacrifices for the civil rights movement. In terms of genocide, I spent 20% of my career working for American Indians who suffered an equivalent genocide of probably 100 million of them were killed. And the rest of them, the remnants of those populations, confined to reservations for 500 years. And all of this land was taken from them. And that also is an original sin of our country. And I've worked on treaty negotiations. I've worked to get them and every form of reparation that I can. I've seen the limitations of some of it. I've seen, the effects of cash reparations compared to investment in infrastructure, and I've had a lot of, I've fought for that very hard. And as I said, I believe in the moral case for reparations. What I said to Jeff is that I think politically, although the lineage-based reparations constitutionally would pass muster, I think politically getting that bill through both houses of Congress would be impossible. The only thing people will do is they'll say, let's study it. And that is just a formula for, kicking the can down the road and not doing anything. What I'm doing, what I propose, are things that are actually going to help the black community.
As Montague takes that seat, just and they switch questions, what are your thoughts on mass incarceration and the overpopulation of profit in the prison?
I'm against private prisons, and I would repeal, if it was up to me, I'd repeal not only the 1994 crime bill, which created the super predator provisions, that created mandatory sentencing, that created 3 strikes you're out, but also, which was authored by Joe Biden, but also another bill by Joe Biden, which is the 1986 drug bill, which...
I think they're switched there. I got everybody going like this. You see them going on there. Do we got a couple of minutes? Like, give us a hard time, a hard stop, or whatever, because...
So let me just say this. The 86 bill was the bill that gave 100 times the sentencing for crack cocaine as for powder cocaine. And those 2 bills together, over an 8-year period, doubled the number of black Americans, black men in prison. And now we have this school-to-prison pipeline, which is funneling 1 out of every 4 black men into prison. And once they go to prison and get out, they're punished again. I'm against private prisons. If it were up to me, I'd repeal both of those acts. I think both of them are counterproductive. I would get rid of, I would expunge the records of everybody who's convicted of a nonviolent drug crime. And I would change the prison so that they do training and training in the trades, training in other areas, rather than, I legalize marijuana and spend the
at the federal level.
Yeah, and right now it is illegal at the federal level. It's under Schedule 1, and I would move that so that we can tax it, and then I'd use that tax to build drug rehabilitation facilities around the country, which is one of my primary, that's my kind of Peace Corps moonshot act, to build these farms around the country where kids can go, black kids, white kids, all Americans, and they can get reintegrated into communities, places where there's no cell phones, no screens, and where you learn to talk to other human beings and heal from chronic disease, have good food, grow their own organic food, and I'll finance that whole thing with taxes on the marijuana. The other thing that I don't want to happen with marijuana, with cannabis sales, I don't want cannabis to be taken over by the tobacco industry or the liquor industry or, the drug industry. I want it to stay in the hands of small entrepreneurs and build, Main Street businesses from it. And so anyway, that's...
I think that legislation was really...
So he hit on some interesting points. He said that the Jews died as well and took risk. And yes, this is true. They did, but let's not forget, please let's not forget that their ancestors were part of the slave trade. They were actually on the forefront of the slave trade. So, I mean, they were part of it. On top of, have you been listening to the gangster rap? That's totally disrespectful, even down to the core of our people. So that really, yes, we feel, bad that this happened, that, they came at a time and a place and was harmed, looking out for us, but their ancestors helped put us there. And then he also talked about the Indians. That was quite interesting when he talked about the Indians. And I'm sure that, if Vicki had time, because I'm sure she knows this, that the Indians were part of the trade too, talking the Native Americans. They were part of helping with the slave trade. In fact, they even enslaved us. Pull up the article, please. It says the Native American slavery is a piece of the history of slavery that has been glossed over, Fisher said. This was by Brown, news from Brown. Between 1492 and 1880, between 2 and 5.5 million Native Americans were enslaved in the Americas, in addition to 12.5 million. I'm going to repeat that. 12.5 million African slaves. While the natives had been forced into slavery and a servitude as early as 1636, it was not until King Philip's War that natives were enslaved in large numbers, Fisher wrote in the study. The 1675 to 1676 war pitted Native American leader King Philip, also known as Metacom, and his allies against the English colonial settlers. Now, during the war, New England colonies routinely shipped Native Americans as slaves to Barbados, Bermuda, Jamaica, the Azores, Spain, and Tangier in North Africa, Fisher said. While Africans who were enslaved did not know, I repeat this, they did not know where they would be taken. Native Americans understood that they could be sent to the Caribbean plantations and face extremely harsh treatment far from their homes and communities, according to the study. Fear of this fate spurred some Native Americans to pledge to fight to the death, while others surrendered, hoping to avoid being sent overseas, the study found. So they were part of the slave trade, and as I stated before, they had even enslaved us. In fact, it was like 5 civilized, as you would call it, tribes, and those 5 civilized tribes, they were enslaving us. In fact, they were, enslaving each other or enslaving one tribe to another before the colonizers came. And so it wasn't like something that was new to them, but it was like a servitude. Like you would stay with them for a certain amount of time, and then you would go ahead and go back to wherever you came from. But they enslaved us as well. And one of the main reasons why it was a lot of them that died was because the Europeans came with diseases to the Americas, and their immune systems, talking to Native Americans, their immune systems could not take it, and that's how they died, especially from measles. I'll put the links in so you can read up on that yourselves, read up on the history of that, and you can see for yourselves. But I'll include the links in the description box on on my channel. But I just, I thought that was interesting how he went and started talking about that and how the Jews helped. And it just seemed like every time reparations for the Black Americans are brought up, it's always an excuse. But she made a great point in saying that they really, really needed to make their wrong right. Because Babylon is going to fall if they don't. It's going to fall. One way or the other, they're going to make the wrong right one way or another. And so this is why, because he even made a point to say, hey, the only thing they're going to do is, I don't believe that they're going to give you guys reparations, but just going to keep on talking about, we're going to study it, we're going to study it, we're going to study it. And no, what we can do is we can continue to stay on the Democrats' necks, like we're doing. Keep advocating Keep letting them know, hey, this is what we want on both parties, Republican, Democrat. He was RFK. He was at one point Democrat, but now he's independent. Independents, we stay on their necks. We let them know this is what we want and this is what we need. Make your wrong right. It was a lot of atrocities and things that happened to our ancestors, and they did not get what you promised. You didn't. They didn't give it. And it's not right. And the main thing is they need to do right by us. Well, that's my nugget for today. And I thank you so much for stopping by my channel. And I will see you again real soon on Conversations with SEW.